welcome back to the special edition of Truck Tech, where we're talking about natural gas, renewable natural gas, new engines from Cummins, and everything that goes into what is becoming an ecosystem around the natural gas business. Today, we're joined by Nathan Whittaker. Nathan is the sales manager for Kenworth here in Greensboro, North Carolina.
I am.
But you are also over an entire region of how many?
We have 10 stores here in North Carolina, and we are the largest provider here. And 125 total locations within MHC in 19 states and 5,000 employees.
I love this though, the fact that one out of every three trucks comes out of Chillicothe, Ohio, has your stamp on it.
That's exactly right. We're sold by an MHC location. That's exactly right, around the country.
That's pretty slick. Okay,
Yes,
so where we're at now though is, and what we're going to talk to you about is just how the dealership experience and even the customer experience fits into the coming, perhaps, revolution, maybe that's strong, of natural gas. We've got a situation now, we've been running a natural gas truck that fits a small number of use cases and geographies, things like that. Now with the Cummins X15N, we're to the point where we've got a competitor really for a diesel truck.
Absolutely.
We want to talk to you and get your perspective in terms of just where that nets out from both a cost perspective, an adoption perspective, and things like that. What are you seeing so far in terms of interest and acceptability of the new truck?
The X15N has definitely sparked interest in alternative fuels outside of just electric or hydrogen fuel cell. It's brought people to the market to say, hey, how does it work for me? Can you come in and tell me what the new advantages of the motor are? Will it now work for me? I'm a long haul. I've got a sleeper. I've got guys that are out on the road for multiple nights. Is this process going to work? Is this technology something that I can look at that helps get me closer to green technology? Can you explain the spec? Can you explain the pricing structure? Can you explain the residual? A lot of these things are boiled down to, how we make this a more consumable product for more people than what it has been in the past. It's been a much smaller piece of the pie or the industry. And now with the opportunity to have an X15 that will allow them to haul heavier loads and go further distances, this is a great opportunity to go talk about it.
Sure. And one of the rationales that Cummins had for bringing the engine here, it started in China. They got 3.5 billion miles under their belt there. So they know quite a bit about it, as we heard in previous episode. But the idea is now you beginning to get some trucks on the road. They've begun building the engine and things like that. But we have some issues to get to the point where people are really all in on this. Might be interested, but you've got quite a bit of sales work to do.
Absolutely. We've got to get out in the market. We've got to find that customer, first of all. Then we've got to educate them. We've got to bring all of our tools necessary, or bring our toolbox, if you will, to break the process down and make it digestible, make it understandable, make them understand what the new technology brings to them. Along with partners, you have to have your fuel provider. You have to have the different components that go into the truck. They have to understand how their truck is going to change, how the driver is going to accept that truck, and what we're going to do to help them take all of that information and put that into something that works for them, that their fleet will be proud of, but at the same point, their customer will accept and say, hey, we're all moving towards green technology together.
There is a piece of this, just like with electric trucks, where you've got an infrastructure that's got to be considered as you make the purchase.
Absolutely.
If you buy a Cummins X15N engine and you buy a Hexagon fuel system and tanks and things like that, this is something that's going to cost some money. It's going to cost you a little bit of time to get your return on investment. What do we know about that so far? Probably not a lot, I would think.
Well, there's other costs that aren't always upfront or discussed when you first start the negotiation or you start the conversation. Most people think it's the truck, right? I'll figure out the fuel. There's websites. There's all types of opportunities for them to say, where is the fuel? How can I get there? Who's the provider? But there's also infrastructure scenarios that you have to deal with, right? How are you going to maintain the product? Who's going to maintain the product? Do you have the right infrastructure to do it yourself? Well, most likely you're probably doing it on that diesel technology, especially if you're interested in the X15N. So there's a lot of conversations that have to be had, and there's a lot of costs that have to go into that ROI other than just the truck. It's a lot more complex, but there are a lot of opportunities to have that conversation and drive somebody to the right opportunity.
I think you used the word complex, and I'll pick up on that, because there's a lot of complexity around the coming changes in greenhouse gas, phase 3 greenhouse gas emissions.
Mhm.
There are things that are, really being required. We've got probably, definitely, a pull ahead coming.
Yep.
All of that is sort of on a collision course, isn't it,
Absolutely.
at this point?
Yep, with diesel technology and with the new clean technology coming into play, CARB 2027, and the emission changes there and what the engine manufacturers are facing, we are seeing other engine manufacturers pull product forward, and we're liking to see what that's going to do with regards to allocation, also what that could mean for a pre-buy. And does that help the X15N by the overconsumption of the diesel product, allowing them to look at an alternative and find something that works for them in the X15N?
We mentioned RNG a lot, renewable natural gas made from, non-petroleum sources, right? California now is beginning to push a little different direction in favor of RNG, and it's already, nearly 100% natural gas in California is RNG. But they're pushing a little bit that might make it harder for some other drop-in fuels like renewable diesel and things like that. We've had some discussions with experts on that. And, there is a bit of a market making function going on, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. There absolutely is. The customer can now make their own secondary income source off of the product that they're producing, that they can now take that RNG and say, hey, Mr. Carrier, you're going to have to partner with me and use this product because I'm producing it, and it's a way for us to partner, and it's a way for us to grow. And also, too, to be able to tell their consumers and their stockholders and their board that they're using all of their resources to push clean technology through their business, not only in their carrier, but in their own home-based business as well.
Well, there's credits for this. You're making money. I mean, if you're bringing in credits,
Right.
You can sell those to someone else.
Absolutely.
Maybe someone, for example, doesn't want to get an electric truck, but they're willing to, maybe they take a CNG or a truck, or perhaps they just buy credits to keep driving diesel. So you've got all these things at play, and they're all kind of bouncing around a little bit. Where does natural gas get the opportunity, whether it's RNG or CNG, get the opportunity to sort of stand up and get to some of these projections that we've heard, 10% of trucking, that's something.
Absolutely. I think the biggest opportunity is looking at where it is now, its growth, its ability to haul heavy loads, go longer distances, and go into places like California and other areas where CARB has become extremely important, and it's being tracked, and it's being looked at as a daily situation that fleets have to deal with.
Right.
Whether you're in North Carolina, whether you're in Kansas, or whether you're in Texas, you're probably running that way, and you're trying to determine how best does my fleet fit. So I think it opens up a lot of opportunity for customers who would have never looked at CNG technology to look at the X15N and say, it can carry me there. It does give me what I need. So let's give it a shot, and let's take a look at how it fits our business.
Well, Hexagon, certainly, they're 45 minutes from
Absolutely.
out of Greensboro down in Salisbury. And they're expanding to make more tanks, and they're making the new systems and things like that. They obviously are fully bought in, along with Cummins, on what's happening. And, so they are looking now to encourage, and you told me earlier, you said, somebody here in North Carolina, a fleet here in North Carolina might be running into California. They would just as soon be compliant when they get there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Again, it's all about being able to be prepared for what's coming, as well as preparing your fleet to grow and preparing to share with your carriers that you are, as the carrier, that you're willing to be compliant and make sure that you're able to go wherever they need to go. Customers are growing. They're asking more and more fleets and carriers to do exactly what it takes to get them to the next level. So this is another way that they could look to do that. And provide an opportunity for somebody to evaluate and say, hey, this is exactly how we're going to go. And we're going to go with them because they're using it.
Well, the way I like to think about it is that they're going to the shippers are going to the OEMs or whomever, and they're saying, fix this problem for me, right?
Absolutely.
That's what's going on.
Yes. Give me another example. Give me another opportunity. The X12 gas motor has been around since 2010, and it's seen a lot of opportunity. But again, it's more short haul.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now able to look at this in a whole different manner and say, hey, we've got a long haul option. How do we sit down and talk to you about it? How do we show you how it affects your truck, how it affects your business, so that we can then further the conversation and bring the right people to the table to help you better understand and see if it's something that works best for you.
We know this, no matter what the engine is or the technology that's out, it's going to cost more.
Absolutely.
Everybody. It's gonna be, you know, natural gas will cost more, electrification costs more, and we have the infrastructure that goes with it. We talked about that briefly. The idea that there are things you're gonna have to do to get ready for this. I guess the question I have though is around the idea of natural gas. Is it a long tail or is it a transition in terms of, you know, are we really gonna be all electric, or are we going to find a place where especially renewable natural gas from dairy, which is 300% less in terms of emissions, NOx emissions. You know, are we going to find a place for that in a permanent way? Or
I think there is a fit for CNG, RNG, and the products that are produced. Electrification is not the end all. There's no way that we're all going to be able to turn around and make our fleets electric and be able to conform by 2027 to some of the obligations being put. It's just not there. The infrastructure is that much further behind, really, than where the CNG, LNG, and the natural gas systems were 10 years ago. So if you look at how it has grown, it's actually putting itself in a great place to be successful. Why electric catches up and why it becomes a technology that maybe become more affordable, or it may become something that is more interesting to the fleet in certain markets or in certain hauls. The CNG market is ready to go. It's already proven.
if we get, and I'm going to stay with that 10%. We know some analysts have put it at higher, 20%. Let's stay with 10, because I think everybody's kind of comfortable with 10% penetration down the road, not first year. If you've got, call it 35,000 trucks that are made every year with CNG, the cost is coming down then, isn't it? I mean, simply because you're making so many of them.
Yeah.
And you're able to charge less too,
Yes,
obviously.
absolutely. With refinements in technology, just like other technologies we've seen come and be absorbed into the marketplace, the more you build it, the more penetration they get, the more manufacturing efficiency they get, you'll start to see cost ease. It'll ease for the dealers, and therefore it'll ease for the overall market, making it more acceptable. And at the same point, allowing fleets to grow faster into the technology if they find it's definitely something they can use.
Right. Nathan, is there any one or two things that customers, end customers, or shippers or whoever are asking you from the MHC perspective right now that I want to know this before I even ask the next question? Is there something like that?
Absolutely. First is number one, can I get it? And what is your avenue to deliver it? Meaning, is there a long lead time? Is the product out there? Is it something that you can go into the data book and spec and build for me right now? And if so, when can I get it? And then on top of that, how quickly can you get me a price?
Right. Well, and that comes into something that we went through in the pandemic, and that was allocation. You're still living with allocation world now.
Mm-hmm.
And that may become a factor even, with the natural gas engine, especially if Cummins decides they are going to pull ahead the X15 diesel, then, does natural gas have a good opportunity there to still have that?
Absolutely. I think that there are opportunities on both sides with the diesel technology being pulled forward and that creating what we see as a pre-buy in the market. Again, that opens up another avenue for the X15N. And then you also have to look at it from a factor, what if that X15N becomes so popular that they outsell what they forecasted to build? That's something else we need to look at. But at the same point, it looks like great technology and people are interested, which is a great start. Now we just got to start quoting it and start selling it.
We know, by the way, to your point, from Sean Ricco, the plant manager at Cummins in Jamestown, New York, he said it's situated. He can do a lot more if that demand comes. He can actually arrange his lines in such a way to make it work. Nathan, this is great. Thank you for helping us understand another aspect of the natural gas story and making the switch really to CNG and RNG. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Nathan Whittaker brings a unique perspective to the whole idea of what's going to happen with natural gas trucks once they get into the dealerships. And of course, coming from MHC, which is the world's largest Kenworth dealer, he knows a lot of what's happening out there in terms of what he's hearing in the early days and so forth. Another perspective comes from Sarah Abernathy, who's a product manager for Kenworth. We caught up with Sarah a few months ago at the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo in Las Vegas. Here's our conversation. So, Sarah Abernathy, it's great to see you. I am really glad to be able to get a little deeper into the whole CNG, RNG story. We've written a fair amount about it in Truck Tech. We've done a few shows. We've been watching the X15N from Cummins really from the start, even back in China in a way. And you guys now get to be number one, bringing it out, actually selling it to customers, real customers first.
Yes, we are so excited to launch the X15N this year, and we're really excited to have this particular truck here in the Ride and Drive at ACT Expo. It's one of the first X15Ns out in the wild.
When I get into this truck, and I haven't done it, but when I get into this truck, what as a driver, what am I going to feel different?
Well, what's exciting about the X15N is that you shouldn't feel too much different between your diesel truck and an X15N. This engine is designed to have diesel-like performance, which is a next step in natural gas technology. So that'll give drivers the performance, the power, and all that they need to do the heaviest loads and all the jobs that they've been doing with a larger bore 15-liter diesel engine with a natural gas engine.
And this is something that's always been the sort of the wrap on natural gas. I mean, even the 12-liter, which is going to be around for a while yet, but it's always had that sort of, well, it's not powerful enough. I don't really like the torque so much, things like that. You're not getting any of that now, are you?
So far, so good. We're really excited. So far, we've mated this engine to the Endurance HD 12-speed transmission, and so Cummins and Eaton have worked really hard to make sure that the shift points and the drivability of the truck has been tuned and is on point for what drivers are expecting from a 15-liter. So we're going to continue that development and ensure that it really does deliver exactly what customers need beyond the performance of the 12-liter.
There are differences in the speccing. You spec a diesel truck a certain way. Natural gas is a little different. I mean, there's obviously going to be some differences. What are the things that the dealers need to know to tell customers?
Absolutely, great question. And that's one of the areas we're really trying to focus the most on at Kenworth, just to help prepare customers and dealers to have the conversations and again to get over that hurdle into natural gas. So some of the things that we're telling our dealers to really keep in mind when they talk to their customers about a natural gas powered truck is what kind of layout do you normally run? Do you have a body on the back of that truck? What's your normal, fifth wheel setting? How do you normally set up your diesel? And then think about how, whether it's going to be a back of cab setup like the one that we have on this truck here, whether you want to think about rail mounted tanks for those that have bodies, and just make sure that you have the right frame space for that. Make sure you're thinking about all of the additional things that you just want to move around on your frame that may be a little bit different from your current diesel spec. So a lot of times, especially for a back of cab setup, you'll want to add in a little bit of extra wheelbase, but sometimes as much as 3 feet, just to make sure you've got enough swing clearance for those trailers. And a lot of times for refuse applications, we'll see rail-mounted tanks to help save space on the back of cab there. Right. So there's a lot to consider on the frame side, but in addition to the frame and actual look of the truck, the drivability is again going to be key. And that's where you want to think about your rear axle ratio, understand that the torque curve is diesel-like, but it isn't exactly diesel. So you'll want to think about what that should look like for the types of grades that you might be running and the application overall. So a lot to consider there.
Yeah, there is a lot to consider. Being a leader at the vocational side of this and obviously pushing this out to vocational customers, what specifically do they need to think of? So most of the things you just talked about, or are there other considerations?
Absolutely. Most of the things I just talked about will ring true, especially for vocational customers, and that's more who I had in mind when I was saying those 2 points earlier. But I will say too, this is now offered, this is a 680 here, of course, that we have, but it is also offered in our T880 platform, which is our flagship vocational product. And the engine and any natural gas system, we really want to make sure that it fits the needs of the customer.
From an ecology standpoint, from an emissions standpoint, when you're running renewable natural gas, which I think is your goal really for this, as much as compressed natural gas, the idea of the emissions profile is just going to be
that much better. So
okay.
RNG, when you use RNG in a platform like the X15N, you're taking your carbon footprint down to as low as it can possibly go with a combustion engine. And that's really important for our customers, for those with ESG goals, but just because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Now, of course, we want to make sure that we're meeting customers' needs in whatever application that they have and whatever fuel they have available to them. And we hope that it's RNG, but at the same time, being able to offer this with CNG and LNG compatibility is a big win for customers as well.
There is, at this point, a real opportunity to meet 2027, the phase 3 greenhouse gas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This engine is certified to CARB standards. It meets low NOx omnibus requirements, and that's a really big win for customers, especially in 2024. Obviously, the long term is an important thing to keep in mind, but 2024 engines are hard to come by for California, and this is one that can go into the state, which we're really excited for.
That's awesome, because there's a lot of engines that are on the bubble there.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk for just a moment though about, we've got RNG, we've got natural gas.
Yeah.
We also have electrification, slowed down just a little bit right now in terms of adoption.
Yes.
You've got fuel cell, which is also an electric truck. You've got other drop-in fuels, I suppose, that are possible, and yet diesel's still going to be with us, isn't it?
Diesel, diesel will still be with us likely, at least in the near term. And it's exciting to see solutions like a natural gas engine come into play on the combustion side, right? Because the emissions requirements are getting so stringent, and you still have the push, of course, for zero emissions with ACT and other regulatory inclinations. But at the same time, we don't want to jump too quickly and not be able to serve our customers and meet their needs. And I think that's what's so exciting about a product like the X15N, and making sure that we're bridging the gap and meeting all of those needs along the way in our zero emissions journey.
Let me ask you, just in terms of, put your sales hat on, you have one, right? Marketing manager. You know, I've heard really big numbers of potential penetration. Since you got into natural gas around the turn of the decade to the teens,
Yep.
it's always been 1%, 2%, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where do you
Where
see
are we
this
headed?
going? Yeah, where are we headed?
Well, I like to think about natural gas as almost, the industry as an overall, as a pie, right? And the pie right now, for those that already run natural gas, is just one little slice. And the goal with the X15N, and I think what's so exciting about it being a large bore engine, is that now we can expand our slice of the pie, and that's a big selling point for us, right? So just trying to figure out how we can educate customers, how we can get them over the hump, and maybe some predispositions that are unfounded about natural gas, especially with this engine coming to play. I think that's going to be the biggest point that we have to move forward in, is education, ensuring that they feel prepared to launch a natural gas powertrain into their fleet, and educating them on how it really will fit in, or how it can fit in. We don't want to put a square peg into a round hole, and I think having as many options as we can is going to be key for customers. And we know that this can hopefully do what they want. We just got to help them get there, help them understand the fuel, help them hopefully look at RNG options that might be in their area. And I think on that same topic, not to jump back to one of the points you mentioned earlier, but refuse is a really exciting prospect for the X15N, just because of their own ability to produce RNG. So we've seen a lot of interest from those in the refuse space that then are able to fuel this truck with their own produced RNG, and that's as good as it can get, right?
Yeah.
Whatever those slight changes need to be to make that spec perfect for you, we're having those conversations at the time of making that spec and getting everything developed. So keeping an open dialogue is a big part of it too, just helping people learn what's going to be different and why can't I have the same wheelbase I had before. All it is a conversation.
Listen, Sarah, thank you so much. Great to have you here today. It is sunny out here.
It's sunny. Thank you so much, Alan. This is a great day. It's great to be here at ACT Expo with you, and thank you so much for your time.
You know, we've now got a new perspective, additional perspective around natural gas and around what may be coming to us. We heard from Nathan Whittaker, who is the regional sales manager for MHC here in Greensboro, North Carolina. We also had an opportunity to catch up with Sarah Abernethy, who is the product manager for the X15N product that Kenworth will be putting on the road very soon. Early speccing is coming in. We're starting to get some trucks built out now to see what this is like. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you again in a few weeks with another episode, another special edition of Truck Tech.